Hello and good day to you. Today's video we are going to hand knit a garter stitch for our hand knit stitch library of our knitwear inventory. To knit the garter stitch we'll need hand knitting needles, and I'll be using 4.5 millimeter knitting needles. You can use any size knitting needle you have. I'll be using Aran yarn. That is because of the visuals I want it to be more pronounced. You can use double knit yarn. I've used double knit yarn to knit one before. So Aran yarn is going to make it thick because of visual, so that you see how it is the texture that we are trying to achieve. Remember that the knitting yarn determines the knitting needle that you are going to use. 4.5 millimeter knitting needle is alright to use for Aran yarn and double knit yarn. So taking this double knit yarn is 100% acrylic. So this is a garter stitch, and we use the double knit yarn to make it. So taking a look at it, you see that it's not it's still a bit light, but it's still dense. It's alright. If you want it thick, maybe you are knitting and you find that, or you have a large size needle and you find out that your yarn is too light for the needle. Maybe you have a large needle, like perhaps you have a large needle like you have a large needle like so. This is putting through my yarn gauge. It's not 8. This is 7.5 millimeter needle. You can see that it passes through. It's stiff but it passes through even up to the middle. But in 8 it's free, so that's not it. And in 7 it's just the pointy cap that passed through. So it's 7.5 millimeter needle. Okay, so if you have this and you have you want to use you have this kind of this needle, and you have a large size needle and a thin size yarn, one other thing to do is to hold 2 strands of yarn together to make it thick. You can hold 2 strands of yarn together. All right, so let's progress with our work. These are needle caps, and you can use them to cover your needles. If this is your first video this is the first of our video you are watching, you are welcome. You are very, very welcome, and we hope you like it. All right, so I'll just remove the caps because it's to protect the pointy parts, the pointy tips of your needle, and it will keep your stitch in check, so that when you drop your work they don't fall off, because you have to pull out for it to, and it protects it so that it don't hurt someone, it don't hurt you. You see, so you have to protect it. It's really good. You get them. I know some people want to know. You can get them in a kit together. If you have some hand knitting accessories, you get them. These stitch holders, you can use them as stitch markers to mark stitches. So you put some stitches together. Maybe once you want to do cables, or some you want to maneuver, knit together, do some lace station, or do some other things on. So you have it. You have the row counter, which is to count your rows. You have this inside. There are some other things in it. I think Bobby something. I can't even remember, but they are in a small transparent pack that I got from Lidl. Or was it Lidl or Aldi? One of them. So I got them from Lidl. They are together. So you can get them. So this was a row counter that was in it. Yeah, I think there are 2 row counter. We have a smaller one and we have a bigger, larger one. So okay, yeah. yeah, that's true. So this is the smaller one and this is the larger one. The larger one can fit this smaller one. The larger one is kind of too large for the for the small needles, but it can fit in. But you see, this, it can't even spin. Even if I turn it like that, it's kind of hard to spin. All right, so it's you can get those ones, accessory pack, hand knitting pack. I think it was it £2.99 I got it, so something like that. I don't know if the price has increased, but that was I think that was a year ago. That's a year, months ago. This is 2023, so that's months. Okay, that was just months ago I got it. All right, so let's this we will use, as I said, we'll be using Aran yarn because of visual, so that you can see the effect of the texture. What you're going to need, you're going to need with 4mm needle, knitting needle. If you have chunky yarn, you can see chunky yarn is very thick. Compare chunky yarn is very thick. So if you have chunky yarn, you will need a larger needle. Like this one is 10mm knitting needle, so it's good for the chunky yarn. You can knit with the chunky yarn. So it all depends on the yarn that you are using, and the effect you want will determine the size of the needle you're going to use. It's 100% acrylic. All right, so to knit, we're going to just take a strand of yarn. There isn't a strand, so I'm going to go closer so that you see. From the yarn feeding, I'm just going to, my row counter, I'm really not going to use my row counter. But you can use your row counter. As you knit one row, you do your counting. All right, I'm going to hold the two needles together and then make a loop, tie it, and just make a second tie to make it firm. We can lose this loop later on and make it tight because this is the first stitch, and if it's too loose, we can do that later on. So I'm going to remove the needle out just to show you the loop. You can see how small it is. You wonder why I put two needles together. That's because we'll be using the other needle into each of the stitches and this loop and the loop to knit. So why not try if the other needle can get into the loop? That way, I mean, if not, if it's too tight, we will now have to make a new loop, and I don't want to struggle about that. So we just put the first needle in. You can see the tail of the yarn is downward. I'm just going to hold it to the needle. I'm right-handed, so I'll be using this right needle to always knit. If you have left-handed, you have to switch. You have to do otherwise, or the opposite. So let's knit. Casting on. So to cast on, we're not going to do a slip stitch, finger slip cast on. Why I said that? It's because it has its advantage and disadvantage. You'll be fast to cast on, just wind it, you've done it. But when you are knitting, it's not going to give you a consistent tension. Mark the word consistent. Means that if you don't have a consistent tension, when you want to make a garment the next time, it's going to vary. So we need a consistent tension, so that even if you're using the same yarn, and in this you say, okay, five stitches and 2 rows give me 1 inch. You know, you did it, you did a knit cast on, and you made it well. But if you use a slip finger, maybe that time the finger, you ate a lot and the finger is a bit on the chubby side. And now the finger is on the slim side, or sometimes you made it too loose and it's too tight. So you want a consistent one, something you can trust, and also you have you know that you're knitting, you have that knitting tension that's going to really help you, especially if you're going to go further with your knitting and you're going to recreate a repeated garment from that tension. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to lose that one. So what we're going to do, that's why we're not going to do that slip cast on. So I'm going to insert the needle into the left needle into this loop, the tail of the yarn held to the knitting needle. I'm going to leave it like so. I'm just arranging it. Okay, so this right needle, because I'm right-handed, I will insert it into this loop, and you take a look at the loop and you see that it is you can see that both of the needles are inside the same loop. Take it across with the yarn, put a partition, use the yarn feeding and put it between the two needles. Then with the right needle, and if you are left-handed, you do the opposite. With the right needle, you're going to bring this loop in the middle out. So I'm just going to make sure it comes out. You can see it, and you twist it so that it comes up. Cool. If you try to pull it towards the side, it should go to the right side if you're right-handed, and if you try to pull it to the left side if you're left-handed, it should go to the left side. Okay, so I'll just pull the tail of the yarn feeding. This is the yarn feeding. It can make the stitch tight or loose when you making it or cast on. So what are we going to do? Because we are casting on, we are going to take this needle on the right hand, this stitch on the right needle, we're going to wear it onto the left needle that has one stitch that we knitted into. Oh, this one looks so yes, it is why do you need this knit cast on? Knit cast on is going to give you a consistent tension. Means that when you knit into it every now and then, it's going to be consistent. If you don't slacking too much, you make sure you follow the same pattern every time. It may slack, but on rare occasion, it's going to have it's not going to be consistent. And also, there is an in-between knit that when you do the slip cast on, that place is going to, I'll show you when we start knitting, because it's going to be wide, sometimes it's going to be slim, sometimes, but that consistency, you need it when you are knitting, when you start knitting the stitch, all stitches, you start knitting to create different lengths of the garment. So this knit cast on is going to give that consistency in that tension when you are knitting. One other advantage of this knit cast on is that it's the same process you will use to knit and to cast off. It's the same process you use to cast on, to knit and to cast off. So it's a continuous way. It enables you to practice, and with that you will start understanding. It will not be tedious for you to knit because you are practicing. Oh, this is it. So let's continue. So I'll just keep on casting on to make the third stitch. You see, to make this third stitch, you will need to do the upper stitch here. So this upper stitch we'll have to insert our needle into it. We'll cross, yarn in between needles. With the right needle, we bring out the loop of the yarn we put in between needles. We bring it out, and then we wear it onto the needle with 2 stitches. Now we have 3 stitches. So I'm going to continue casting on. How many stitches are we supposed to cast on? We are supposed to cast on, for this project, we just want to cast on, we are making swatches for our library, so we'll make 20 stitches and we'll need 20 rows. No, it's not necessarily it's going to be a square. We just want to make 20 stitches and 20 rows so that we see the texture, the stitch pattern properly. You can make odd numbers of stitches if you desire, but I just want to make it an even number because even number is easier to remember. Oh, it's time for us to count. Let's make sure it's not I want it 20, so 1 2. It's 20, more than 20, so I'm just going to pull this one out. I'm just going to lose it and make sure it's 20. Okay, so it's 20. Garter stitch. What is garter stitch? Garter stitch, we have to knit when the back and the front, not only are they the same, but you have to knit all through. No maneuvering, you just knit all through. You have the purl at the back and the purl stitch in front continuously, like caterpillar. Well, not short caterpillar, the full one, long distance. So if you take, let's see if I have a, so taking a look, this is garter stitch, and this is the front and this is the back. You can see that they are the same, and garter stitch is kind of stretchy. You see, it's kind of stretchy. You have that elasticity to it. All right, so let's make. So we've casted on. What we are going to do next is to knit. And we are going to knit every row from beginning to end, repeated till we gotten the desired size or to the desired rows we want, to our desired row. All right, so to knit, we'll put the needle in, like as if we want to cast on. We'll take our yarn in between to knit the first stitch up. We start from the first stitch. So we put our right needle with the empty needle into the first stitch of the casted row, the upper first stitch that has the yarn feeding close to it. That like the last stitch we casted on. Okay, so we're going to take the yarn and put it in between the needles. And as we did for the cast on, we pull out the loop. So we've knitted into it. We've made a stitch. Unlike the cast on that we had to put this stitch onto this needle that has lots of stitches, we are going to use our forefinger. You see here what I'm doing? I'm gradually pushing this upper stitch while trying to make sure these other stitches don't fall out. I'm going to push it out, because it's quite tight and I want to knit. I'm not casting on. So I'm going to push it and let it just fall to the middle. Make sure I put a full stitch, and that is it. If it's too loose, you can use the yarn feeding to adjust it, and it will be quite tight. So let's knit a second one. So we've knitted one stitch. So to knit the second stitch, we repeat same. Needle into the upper stitch, the new upper stitch. Yes, it's the new upper stitch. Sorry about that. Take the yarn, feeding, put it between the two needles, pull out the loop. Now we have two stitches on this right needle, and we have and this stitch is quite tight again. So we need this upper stitch that we knitted into out of the way so that we can knit the third stitch. So we're just going to use our forefinger to push the that loop out that we knitted into, while we make sure these other stitches that are on that needle don't fall out along with that upper loop. So we do the third time to knit into the third, to create a knit into the third stitch. Fourth, Okay, so there's something, this is the tension I was trying to tell you. If you do a slave cast on, is this part, this middle part here is not going to be consistent. So except you now know how to control the slip cast on, you'll be frustrated with it, and you don't want that for a beginning. And you see, we've been doing the knitting stitch since, using it for as cast on. We're now using it to knit our project to make it wider. But we still do it again when we want to cast off. So why not practice it? So I'll quickly knit this one. So I've just knitted into the last stitch, and I'll just remove the knit, and you can see that it's a bit loose. We can handle that. The last stitch was the first stitch we casted on when we did that tie. You can see it here, so you can see it's a bit loose. We'll handle it as we are working. Then later on, if you want to, you can come back, loose this and tighten it when you finish knitting your work totally. So we finished knitting row 1. That is row 1 completed. So to knit row 2, we are going to insert this stitch is not the upper stitch. We're going to insert our needle into this upper stitch, and you can see the yarn feeding is up. Yes, so we take the yarn, you wind it across, and you knit. The same process, we do it from top to back. If you notice, the purl is now there's a kind of curvy stitch. These are known as purl effect. They are now here, the Garter effect, which are purl effect. It's at the back, and now it's as if we are working at the back of the work. Some people knit from this upper part, from the stitch. You can see we have the inner part and the outer part. Some people knit this inner part, some people knit this outer part. Like me, I knit this outer part. So whatever knitting you desire, be consistent in it, and note the effect is going to create. So may create a kind of twisted effect. So may create a kind of not straight effect. Yeah, not like twisted, but when I mean not straight, I mean kind of wobbly. So we continue knitting. And for this project, we are going to knit 20 stitches. We are knitting 20 stitches up to 20 rows. So with your row counter, you can change your row counter if you want to, and say you've knitted. You can change it on every row, or once you finish a row. Sorry, I said yes, every row, or once you finish 2 needles, you change, so that you change it after every even number of rows. So we have knitted 2 rows. You can see. Okay, now you can't really, it's not that pronounced. So we have I plan knitting. Okay, let's see it. So I'm going to continue knitting in this manner. So this is the third row I'm knitting, so I'm going to continue. And if I want to, let me just change my row counter for those that want to know how to use the row counter. So you see that the 0 is at the bottom, and the number I'm changing, so just put it in the way that it's not that it's writing like 70. So we have a 3, so I'm going to wind it. We are knitting the third row, so I'm going to put it that we are going on 0-3, so that but it's advised that if you are using it, once you finish knitting that row, you change it so that you know that that row is what. If not, if you change it in between, when you get to the end, you won't even know whether it was at the beginning. If it's you want to note how you change the row counter. Even in machine knitting, there's a way the row counter changes. When the carriage goes over, the row counter towards the middle of the work, it just start changing. But this is hand knitting. You will finish it when it gets to, you should change when it gets to the end. Before you once you finish that row, you put that number of row in. If that's going to confuse you by changing at the end of the row and the beginning of the row of a new row, you're going to get confused. So I'll quickly finish this one and show you, then we'll continue off camera. And when we get to row 20, we're going to put on the camera. And so I've knitted 3 rows. I'm just going to put it so that take a look at it. So our garter stitch is in progress. Next time using the garter stitch, will finish. Yes, you have to knit it up to 20 row, and as if you want to knit the 21st row, that is the row will be casting off. So you knit 20 row complete and will cast off. So see you then, row 20. Okay, let me show you the back too. Yeah, you can see the back. Okay, back and the front. See you at row 20. We've already finished the 20th row of our gathered stitch, so I'm just going to bring it so that you see, do it closer so that you see the gathered stitch. So we've got into 20th row of our gathered stitch, and so this is the gathered stitch. You can see the effect, and I'm just going to flip to the underside and you see it. Bending, I'll just take a little bit of bend on it and just point it out, and you see that both the back side and the front side, they are the same. Okay, so it's time for us to cast off. So to cast off, we'll do as if we are knitting, but instead of how we did casting off, to put the needle, the new stitch onto the left needle or the right needle if you are left-handed. What we'll do is that when we knit, we'll have to take the stitch over, we'll have to take a stitch, we'll have to knit 2 stitches on our right needle, then we'll take the upper stitch, the lower stitch over the upper stitch. That is the previous stitch over the newly knitted stitch. Okay, let's start. So to this, we'll just put you still have to knit. So this gather stitch, and we just knit completely all through. So this is gather stitch, and we'll have to knit the first stitch first, which I've just knitted, and then we'll knit a second stitch. Now my previously empty needle has 2 stitches here. So what we'll do is this bottom stitch, we're going to take it over this upper stitch. So you can, my right needle is empty, and I'm going to start casting off. And to cast off, I'll take the needle into the first stitch. Make sure you pick the full stitch. Yeah, just like how we knitted. I'm just going to show you around. Okay, then I'll cross my needles. We'll take the yarn. We need to knit the first stitch. So I've just knitted the first stitch. My empty needle now has one stitch. We need to knit a second stitch that we are going to do the maneuver, that we are going to use for the maneuvering. So this is the second stitch that we've just knitted. So now my needle have 2 stitches. I'm going to take this bottom stitch. I'm going to take it over this first upper stitch. So that's the previous, the last stitch. I'm going to take it over this new stitch we knitted. How will I do that? We have to use the help of my left needle to pull it out, to pull it over. Why? Protecting all these other stitches so that they don't fall out, the other stitches on my left needle. If you are left-handed, you do the opposite of what I'm doing. So insert the needle into the second stitch. You can see it inserted into the second stitch, and you can see that the first stitch is free. There's no needle there. Then you can use this, you can tug at this yarn feeding to help you pull the yarn, tug it towards the down. It will help you to pull the stitch tightly, and then you can still bring it out. So we've just casted off the first stitch, but we have a new stitch, we have a stitch there. Okay, so to cast off this second stitch now, we will need to knit a new stitch to help us to cast off that second stitch. So I've just knitted a second stitch, and we need to cast off that stitch. So the same, with the help of my left needle, I'm going to now pull the previous stitch over this upper stitch, and I've cast it off. Just pull it off, and it will form a loop around that stitch, and then that's cast off. If you take a look at the edge, you will see we have no stitch, but we have some nice nice chain edges. You can see the chain edge forming. So we just finished the last stitch. And we have a loop. You can see the loop over here. So what I'm going to do is just to trim, put the tail of the yarn into this loop twice, because I don't need to lose it. If I needed to lose it later on, I'll put it once. Then I'll gently pull it until it turns into a knot there. So here's our gathered stitch. We're just going to go very close to it. So I want to say thank you for joining me for this video of hand knitting a gathered stitch for our stitch library of Knit Your Inventory. Until next time, happy crafting, happy designing, and remember, you are the designer.